I guess we should describe
where we're going into.
Where we're going. This is the Versailles Cemetery on 2nd North Street and Monroe Street in Versailles, Indiana, off of Highway 421. And this is the entrance to the cemetery where Ellen, your family, part of your family is buried. John Lindsay Rand, J. Dean Rand, and Elizabeth Ellen Wilson. And we first started doing the genealogy research early in 1995. And it took us a while to determine where we were going. Now, if you pan to the right, there's a mausoleum up at the top. And right around that mausoleum, I believe, is where the graves are.
By the tree.
By the tree. So what we'll do is we'll pull around here, almost right in the center of this cemetery. Pull around to the road up here and stop and get out and go to the Rand graves. And your grandmother had several pictures of that mausoleum. Of course, it was in much better shape than it is now. Okay?
Okay.
Well, we got the car parked. Okay, you can see in this road here, which goes around the back side of the cemetery, the Rand stones will be, it's a pink colored stone. Can you pan over there and see the pink colored stone underneath the tree? It's just to the left of the mausoleum. Okay. Anderson. It was the Anderson mausoleum that your grandmother had a lot of pictures of. It's in disrepair right now, but she has some very nice pictures of that in one of her scrapbooks and one of her pictures. The Anderson mausoleum. Behind the tree, where a lot of the pictures were taken before, facing this way, is buried J. Dean Rand. And J. Dean Rand is the father of Isola Elizabeth Rand, who is your grandmother. And come around here and we'll take a look at the stone. The stone is facing the tree. Of course, the tree was very, very small at one time, and it's very difficult to see now. He died a young man and his wife remarried. His wife is not buried here with him. In fact, all you see on this large family plot right here, which is, if you take a look around the cemetery, this is probably the tops, pretty much the top spot in the cemetery, right in the center. And the Rand family has two plots here. And unfortunately, J. Dean was buried in this one all by himself because his wife remarried Geisler. this plot right here, which is a little bit larger than the plot for J. Dean Rand, and where his family is supposed to be, is buried John Lindsay Rand and Elizabeth Ellen Wilson. John Lindsay Rand built the house, the Rand home, which is now the home of the National Muzzle Loaders down in Friendship, and he moved out of this area, which I hear is a very interesting story. I don't know all the details, but moved up to Indianapolis, lived off of Mann Road, and Ellen, what was it, Mills Road?
Mm-hmm.
Mills Road, and into a beautiful house up there. And Elizabeth Ellen Wilson, who's buried here, is who you were named after. And over here is Filmer Day and Laura B. Rand. And Laura Rand, I believe, was the sister of J. Dean Rand. And J. Dean Rand's other sister was Florence, who married a Beckett. And Beckett, they're buried up at Crown Hill Cemetery. I'm going to do a rubbing on. Oh, and then a small child here, born in or died in 1927. Engraving on this stone says, "We miss thee from our home, dear. We miss thee from thy place, a shadow. O'er life is cast. We miss the sunshine of the face." And this is for Filmer Day. This is Acres and Friendship Cemetery above Friendship, Indiana. And we've had to park the van down at the bottom of the gate there because they're keeping the gate locked. We were here in August of 1995 and someone had damaged the tombstones. So they're securing this old historic cemetery. Talking about the pine trees, these old ancient pine trees that probably were the gates to the original cemetery. This is the first time I was introduced to the history of Friendship, Indiana, and the Rands and the Pates. Art and Juanita Allison brought me here summer probably 1979 or 1980, and we drove up here and they introduced me to some of the family members who were buried up here at the what I consider the top of the world. As you can walk up this hill, you can see it. We're right above the town of Friendship. Okay, you probably cut it. Blue sky, even though it's a little bit cold. It's about 30 degrees. March 1st, 1996. Off in the distance, as we're walking, you can probably hear the roar of what we think are jet engines from Crane Naval Depot, which is probably about 15 miles from here, 15, 20 miles. So this may have been back in 1979 or 1980 when I first started getting interested in history, especially for this area down here, and really didn't put it into play until the early part of 1995 when I got Isola Rand's journals and books and started compiling all of her information and putting it into my laptop computer. So as I walk through the cemetery, which is kind of a small cemetery, you can just see it's on this little ridge right here, and beyond it overlooks the town of Friendship. Most of the names here I'm now familiar with. May Pate here, who still lives in Dillsboro, Indiana, is the owner of one of the Ohio River Valley family books, and she's here with her sister, Bertha Payton. I think Bertha, Ellen, wasn't Bertha the lady who we went and visited in Cincinnati? I believe she was a nurse. Over here we have the Heitmeyers and Sarah Pate. Now, Emma P. Heitmeyer is actually Emma Pate, and she was very active in genealogy and did a lot of research with Isola Rand. And then Henry Heitmeyer here is her husband. There's a Caroline Heitmeyer. There's a Joseph C. Livingston and Mary J., his wife. I believe that's Joseph C., maybe Joseph Connell Livingston, who's tied into the family. Quite a few Livingstons here. Here's a Livingston. Some of the stones you can see are knocked down, and the cemetery has been desecrated probably many times. There's Connell, which I believe the grave we had back there, the C in Joseph's name stood for Connell, and there's one of the Connell monuments. Many of these here are much too old to readily be able to read. Still have some damage by some of the monuments being pushed over, as you can see. And some of them have just not been able to stand because of the sinking of the ground and the very heavy old monuments. This is a very old cemetery. Now, if we go back here, you see some of where the Pates come into the family. George B. Pate and Mariah T. Pate. Now that's Mariah T. Otto. And in the Ohio River Valley Families book, you'll see a picture of George Pate and Mariah T. Otto's, probably their wedding picture. They had several children. I'm assuming that Mariah's parents were here, probably German descent. Mariah Otto's parents here, but this was George. This is a baby that they had and died. This is another baby that George and Mariah had who died. Lois, Elsie Pate. L. Quinton, and I believe that was Luther Quinton Pate. never married, I don't believe. And then Prudy, or Prudence Pate, who I visited probably right before she died. It looks like she died November 2nd, 1978, and I think we may have come here to Friendship, Indiana early in 1978. We were married in 1978 on March 4th, which is 3 days from now. So we must have either had been married or about ready to be married when we first came down here to Friendship. Here is the home that John Lindsay Rand built in the 1880s, I guess. Now the home of the National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association. And we're going to go in and visit. Looks like a lot of people here. We're going down to Farmer's Retreat in just a little while because that's where the family came from before they moved up to Friendship. And this is Thomas Rand is the original settler here in 1811 in Cedar Creek Township.
Yeah.
And what they did is they moved up the river, and John Lindsay married Elizabeth Ellen Wilson, and that's where this property came from. So this goes back even further than the property does here. Yeah.
Where are you going to Farmer's Retreat?
We're going down to a place called the Rand Cemetery, and
Where's it at?
that's right on the yeah, that's a family cemetery. That's right on is it Lawfery Creek or Lowry? Lawfery. It's right off the creek, and then there's a coal cemetery called the Coal Chapel Cemetery. We've not visited either one of those two places before, so. But yeah, so you have a historical library here. Well, I might have to donate one of the books. I sold out the first printing of it, and I'm having a reprint in April, so I didn't make enough of it. So this is the Rand house, huh?
The old staircase in here has been closed off, but it's still in one piece.
Oh, really?
It's still there. This went to the hired man's room. It's steep, but it went straight up to the hired man's room, and that was the only entrance into that room. And then when we go upstairs, you'll see that they cut a hole in it later and put a doorway in.
Now, was this sort of like the kitchen area, or what was this?
No, this was just a sitting parlor, right?
Like your entrance way?
Yeah, entrance parlor. This was the dining room in here.
And you're saying this is most of the original woodwork that was in the house then?
Yeah, the woodwork has basically never been touched. So. This goes down to one of the cellars. There's two cellars in the house. That's when you get into from the inside, and then there's one on the outside too that you can get into. And then, I mean, you can go down and look. It's basically full of boxes, but be real careful with stuff.
That must have been where they kept the canning goods and so forth. That's one of two cellars, I guess. don't see any of your ancestors' graffiti, Alex, so.
I gave you one. This room was the dining room, which was kind of sparse, you know, just having the one window.
One window
The
there.
fancy woodwork that was in the house.
Mhm.
This room back here was the kitchen. Real careful, yeah. This is where we keep a lot of our books in these cabinets. And they do have the windows blacked off. During our shoots, they will have a small museum display in here and in the back room, which is locked up right now. I don't know if we can get a key or not. And that was like the smoke room. It's all bricked in and has a fireplace back there. This is a restroom now, but this was the pantry. And it was never locked. It was full of shelves. Had a window in there. But all of the woodwork in here had been painted, unfortunately. Working, you'll see the fireplace. That tile is original. The tile here is listed, and the fireplace is not the original.
Yeah.
That one had disappeared.
We all have to be kissed and I have better try.
This was the bedroom in here?
This was a bedroom, and they kind of converted it. Different people have lived in here. The windows kind of shut off. We had a dark room type set up back here, and they had like a washroom and another small bathroom in here.
This looks like maybe the main entrance of the, was this the main entrance of the house?
We called this a, I don't know why, I think they called this like the funeral door. Because you would have your funerals in the home, and they would bring a casket.
Oh, I
Because
see.
there's no, like sidewalk to it or anything.
Oh, I
You could
see.
see all the transits and all the woodwork.
Mm-hmm.
This is where pretty safe. Of course, this was all hand done, and if you feel these, each one of these were hand carved, and they're all just a little bit different in size. They were all hand done here on the property. And the bricks were all made here too, on the outside.
Now, was the bricks made here on this property, or were they done locally somewhere in the
I heard they
area?
were done here on the property, and then they were also used to build the sister's house.
Okay. Yeah, Elizabeth Ellen's sister. I don't know what her name was, but I know that the Wilsons had quite a bit of property around this part.
This was originally Wilson's
Mhm.
land.
Oh, okay.
We bought the property, well, we bought the house in '66, and the 204 acres of land came with it.
204, huh?
204 acres came with the house, and our offices used to be in Shelbyville, Indiana, and they moved in here.
Mm-hmm.
And when they moved in here, the offices were all downstairs, and Maxine Moss, our editor, lived upstairs. And that's when some of this remodeling was done.
Now, Maxine's, she was the editor when the 1966 book was published, wasn't she? Okay. Wrote the article. Mm-hmm.
She just retired, maybe 10 years ago.
Good. That's something.
This was the hired man's room that you saw from downstairs, how you got into through the staircase. The staircase actually comes up under that oven over there.
Oh, so it comes up under the oven is where that one door is right there, okay.
This was the hired man's room. So the woodwork and everything was real plain in here, and then this doorway wasn't here. That was the easy way up and down through that staircase. And then this was the maid's bedroom, which was converted to a bathroom.
Now, which rooms was this?
Maid's.
Maid's room? I don't know if I can get a view of the, I don't know if I can get a view back on the hill here or not. Now the
We go
will,
out on the porch. We get
Oh.
a view from out here.
okay.
But if you look at this wood, it's painted grain. People used to travel around and paint the grain to look like.
I've read about that.
Oh, no kidding.
So that's all painted, and then all the matches off through here.
Mm-hmm.
And the porch is starting to rot, so please be very, very careful when you have it repaired. You can get a view into this one. We did get the house on the historic register, but they haven't done anything with it yet. So.
Now from this, the Wilson Monument is up on
It's right in that direction, right,
Uh-huh.
halfway up that hill.
about halfway up the hill then, okay. Okay.
The house over there is the Laker homestead, and that's been in the family since.
Beautiful view of Lawfery Creek, isn't it?
In the spring, it took just to the bottom of this little rise, but it's never been up in the house as far as I know.
Oh, is that so? It comes up to the sign right there?
Yeah, it comes up on this side of the sign, at least twice a year. It'll get the road and over the ballboard fence over there.
Okay.
This was an upstairs parlor.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, this is sort of like the living room area of the house?
And you see the mantle and the woodwork in here is very nice too.
Mm-hmm. We're bothering you as you're working. Sorry about that.
No, you're not.
Yeah, it's very
You're
nice.
not. I just didn't think you wanted to credit it.
Thank you.
And this room was two separate bedrooms. There was a wall that divided it down the middle.
Mhm.
And if you see the woodwork on this doorway matches this window, and the woodwork on that doorway matches that window.
I see,
But
okay.
then when Maxine moved in, they...
So one of these is where my grandmother would have been born, one of these rooms.
Probably, yeah, probably one of these rooms where Isola was born.
The bedroom downstairs and then these two bedrooms were it, and they had a large family too.
Yeah, Rand's had a lot of.
Yes, he did. Very large. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for the tour.
No problem.
We're above Friendship on a road to Dupree, just a few hundred yards from the town and the Rand home. And we were told that the Wilson Monument, which is the Wilson family, which had all this 204 acres, stands. And we've got some very nice pictures of the monument taken back in the late 50s, early 60s. But now the monument has been, as some of the stones in the acres in Friendship Cemetery has been destroyed. And up here on our right, we should be able to see basically the pedestal of the monument. You can see through the trees up there at the top, all that's left of the Wilson Monument is just the pedestal. And I'm sure that the monument has been carried off. I'm going to stop the car here and see if I can walk up there and see if there's anything left of it.
This is on Wilson Hill. A little out of breath having to walk up this steep hill. And unfortunately, the Wilson Monument has been, as many of the monuments around here have been torn down. This is Thomas Wilson, Elizabeth Ellen's father. And Mahala Wilson is on the other side. As you can see, there's just bits and pieces of the monument that's used as field here is used as very unkempt. I'll look around. It's really a shame. Beautiful views overlooking the Lawfery Valley outside of Friendship. You can see some of the places across there where they keep campers, where they have the spring and fall muzzleloader chutes on this area, and I'm sure that brings in all sorts of people. Now there's the top of the monument, and really all that we have left. It was a statue of a lady facing, looks like this would be north, and it sat on top of this pedestal here up at about that angle, and now we have is someone's pushed it over and it's on the ground. what makes people do these sort of things is beyond most of us. It just takes just a few seconds to destroy, you know, decades of someone's life and the remembrance of that life. This is all we see on this side of Mahala Wilson, wife of Thomas Wilson. Both of them died in the 1870s. And there's, I believe, the van, and there's the walk I just had up this very steep hill. But a beautiful March 1st morning, late afternoon, or early afternoon in southern Indiana. Dorcas. There's a Dorcas Coles. This is Eliezer Cole. These are the key people in this family. Daniel and Eunice Kelsey. There's a lot of Daniel. Could you describe what this was, being Cole Chapel Cemetery?
Cole Chapel Cemetery, where the Coles and the Kelseys are buried. Quarter mile south of Farmer's Retreat, pretty much in ruins.
In the book of the Ohio River Valley families, a lot of the Coles and the Kelseys are all buried here. Bells Branch Road, and even further south of Farmer's Retreat, near Lawfery Creek, we're coming into where we can see the Rand Cemetery. Clay Miller Road is crossing. And this is the original Rand land. There is the Rand Cemetery. We're going to park and go over to it. Well, you want me to go over and ask him? You prefer I do that? Rand Cemetery. Getting a little closer to it. And we're just trying to figure out where the homestead was originally for this property. There's a home right across the street. Maybe that was Thomas Rand and James Rand's original home. This was originally settled, this property was originally settled by Thomas Rand in 1811, before Indiana became a state. He moved over from, first of all, from Belfast, Ireland, was in Virginia, and from Virginia he went to Brown County, Ohio, before he came here. Beautiful hill up to the southeast. Muddy. Susan Rand. Here is Jonathan Cole, who married Sarah Ann Rand. And we're sort of looking for Sarah Rand's stone. Okay. This is Sally Ann Rand, wife of J. Cole. She died August the 4th, 1866. She was aged 44 years, 8 months, and 1 day. This is the wife of Jonathan Cole, and this was she died before her time. That's who Thomas Rand. So let's see what we have back here. Elizabeth. Okay, here's Elizabeth Rand. Elizabeth Carter Rand, I believe, is she was a Carter. C-A-R-D-E-R. Wife of Thomas Rand. Thomas Rand's headstone should be somewhere in this area. I don't see it. Don't see where Thomas Rand's headstone is. But I would guess
Okay.
No, other than that, I'll get this.
Saturday morning, 7:30. Just a view out our balcony. This is Madison, Indiana. Beautiful town. We're staying at the Hilltop, up on a hill outside of town, overlooking the Ohio. There's the bridge into Kentucky. That's all lit up at night, so we could see out our balcony while we slept last night. Was watching the cars come across the bridge. The town's all been redone. There's some beautiful shops downtown. We're gonna go downtown this morning and look around and see what all we can see. Well, now that we've traveled for 24 hours in southern Indiana and walked the places that my ancestors have walked, I want to get your impressions. First of all, when we went to Versailles, what was your impressions there?
Versailles is a pretty nice, I think, prosperous town that is in a beautiful area, starting in the beautiful area in southern Indiana. It's pretty nice scenery with the Versailles State Park. As we walked through the cemetery, I couldn't help but to think that your ancestors got a pretty good spot of honor there. It seemed like they were in the center of the cemetery on a high hill, overlooking everything else around them. The next step was going into friendship. Friendship has gotten very commercialized from some of the pictures I've seen of your grandmothers, where there was still the country life. I think to some extent it's like Brown County, Indiana, where they try to feign the fact that they had country life. But the minute you walk in, you know, there's lots of commercialism. There's the booths, there's the trailers from the Muzzleloaders Association. It's almost like a county fair type of atmosphere, and I guess twice a year in the spring and fall, thousands of people descend upon the town, and they're pulling their corn dog wagons and their soda stands and everything. It's that town, based upon what your grandmother knew, is totally different.
Well, what do you think of the house? Since we did tour the house.
Right, the house itself was pretty elegant, you could tell, for something being built. I think the book says 1880s, 1890s time frame. The house was obviously very elegant. The woodwork is still original. I did read where there were changes made to the fireplaces and so forth, but for the most part that house is as it was many years ago. And that was sort of nice to get back involved in, and now it was a little bit unusual to see it being used as a commercial enterprise. That was really where they set up, the house itself is where they set up the Muzzle Blasts, which is the monthly publication. So it was used as a working layout area, and downstairs you saw the editor who was working and basically has a place of honor in the house. So the house was nice, but for what it was being used for, it would be nice if that house was used as a private residence again. The Friendship Cemeteries was locked up. We were glad to see that because of the damage, and there were still, you can tell, still some of the stones were pushed over. But I think the saddest thing was the Wilson Monument that was pushed down and knocked over. And as I sat up on top of the hill, it was really sad to see that someone had basically pushed over a monument to someone's life. Work. The Wilsons were obviously very wealthy. They gave 2 parcels of land to their daughters, and they were very wealthy, respected people. And it's you know, people just do things without thinking. If you pause the tape, I'll get a picture of what the Wilson Monument used to look like. I'll just take you through some of the pictures. This is an early picture of the house that we were at yesterday. This is the hill behind the house overlooking. You can see the angle that you're at right there. There's the top of the house. This is the area that the muzzleloaders have all taken over for the shooting range. This was well before that. And this was taken even higher up on the hill behind the house. And these were some pictures. Bear Creek Baptist Church. We're going to try to find this today. This is down in Ohio County. The Thomas Rand home. This is the home of Thomas Rand Jr., son of Thomas Rand Sr., brother to James Rand. James Rand is Ellen, your family. We saw this field yesterday from high on the road. This is, you just go east of Friendship as you're going to Farmer's Retreat, maybe a mile, and you start coming up on a ridge. And on that ridge you can overlook, in fact, I think we have it videotaped, I'm not really certain. In the Rand Cemetery, here was the Rand Monument. Now we saw Sarah's and we saw Elizabeth's, and Elizabeth was down in this picture taken in the 60s, early 60s, and it's still down, but it's mostly covered up. Sarah's was there. Thomas Rand's, we could not find his monument at all, and I'm afraid that's either been buried way in the ground or someone's run off with it. That'd be a sad thing. Here's some more of the Rand Cemetery. This is the only monument really that stands in the Rand Cemetery. This tree right here is no longer there. This is on Bells Branch Road. It's way south in the township. Pictures of her sails. Okay. This was a Rand, this was what the Rand monument looked like from just, or the Wilson monument from the little hill. Back where I was taking the picture yesterday was around in this area right here. But if you walked up, you could walk up the hill a little bit and look back down on it. And the Rand home was in this area right here. That's Olin Keith right there. Now that is a walk to come up there. So when they did this, when they were, you know, in their late 50s, early 60s, that was a tough thing for them to do. But look how beautiful this monument was. Here's the statue itself. These are very, very good pictures. Isola wrote in this book on Wilson Hill, Friendship, Indiana. This is the Wilson Monument, and the only thing we have left now is just from here on down. This portion of it, I couldn't find the arm, and I couldn't find the head, so what's left of this monument is here. Her staff is gone. So what I think we'll try to do is to get this down to someone in Friendship and maybe have them restore this monument.
I do want to ask you what you felt when we first pulled up to Cold Chapel, because I know I had some pretty strong feelings about that.
Cold Chapel Cemetery was strange for me because I had read a letter written in 1987 from a Dorothy Kelsey from Hawaii. And she was writing someone in Lawrenceburg, and the letter wound up in Juanita Allison, your mother's, hands. And basically in that letter they were asking for some, Mrs. Kelsey was asking for some information on the Rand and the Pate and the Kelsey family, which of course Isola had. And she she knew Isola had passed away, but didn't know how to get all the information. So as it turned out, your mother had passed along a letter to me, and we got her a book, and she got the information she was looking for, albeit about 6 or 7 years late. I guess the thing that struck me about her letter was that she was talking at that time about the poor condition of the cemetery, how it had really run down. That was her ancestors. As we saw, there were a lot of Kelseys, Eliezer, Cole, and Hannah Rouse. Their descendants married into the Kelseys, and there was a lot of Kelseys, Daniel Kelsey, for example, in that cemetery. And I think that she felt at the time when she saw the cemetery, as I did yesterday, and as probably you did about the Cole Chapel Cemetery and the Rand Cemetery, is that, hey, if it was a private burying place for your family, it wasn't maintained by the county, you're out of luck. It was left open to all of the years of vandalism, overgrowth, lack of caring. And I think when I first pulled up, I said, I can't believe all of the people that I had read about and had been compiled, and their lives and so forth, were just left to be remembered in this fashion. It would almost be best that they weren't there at all, as opposed to leave it in such poor condition. And I was struck by the difference as I drove from the family cemeteries like Cole Chapel and the Rand Cemetery. I was struck by and went to the Versailles Cemetery. I was struck by the difference. You know, if it was on church property or it was on public property, they have caretakers, they have township trustees. The cemeteries were just as old in some cases, but they were left to much better care. And I think one of the things I'd like to investigate is to see what it would take to get some of the family members together and spend some weekends in shifts or whatever to restore the cemetery, to go down there and rebuild the stone walls that were so painstakingly put together in the 19th century, beginning of the 19th century actually, and to restore it to what it once was. I don't know what your impressions were of seeing your family. This is my impressions of you know, being part of your family, but it's got to be different being your family.
It was a sad day. I think it bothered me that they are so forgotten, and especially bothered me that the headstone of Thomas is gone. I think that's an important headstone. That's our link to the American Revolution, and I think if someone took that stone, I feel really bad because I know we'll never be able to replace it.
It can be replaced with a duplicate, but it can never be, the original can never be replaced. This river out here, as we're looking at it, is what brought all of them to this area. We take it for granted. Beautiful sight. A little bit chilly this morning, but a beautiful sight. That's what took my ancestors originally to the Pittsburgh area, which is upriver here. I don't know how many miles, about 200 and some odd miles from this location is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the Ohio branches into the Allegheny and the Susquehanna. Thus the name of the city being Three Rivers. The Ohio, the Susquehanna, the Allegheny. And it's navigable quite a ways up into Pennsylvania, from what I understand. This part of it right here, you can see it goes around a bend. But this is the highway that brought both of our families into this corner of the world. They immigrated. Well, we're in Kentucky. And what we've done is we've left Madison, Indiana, and we've driven to Cincinnati. From Cincinnati, we've taken Highway 52 down to Aberdeen, Ohio. Aberdeen is in Brown County, Ohio, which is ironically place where Thomas Rand had stopped and stayed before he moved his family to Lowry Creek. We crossed the river at Aberdeen from Ohio into Maysville. Maysville's a pretty good-sized little town now. Most of it's built off of the river, shopping centers and so forth, so it's modern, has all your fast food restaurants and so forth. And where we are right now is on the Kentucky Scenic Byway, and we're coming into Mays Lick. Mays Lick is the ancestral home of the Allison family. And we're going to take a right here on 2517 and see what Mays Lick is all about. Notice a sign back there said that it was the asparagus bed of Mason County, so Mays Lick is one word. The older part of the town, but it doesn't appear like the town is all that ancient. Looks like it's been pretty well kept though. Here's a historical sign that we'll read. Up here is the oldest part of town, it looks like. If there's going to be an old part of Mays Lick, this will be it, right here. This is where William Allison came from. William Allison, who settled, and it should be buried in Shannon. We're going to get back to one of the highways. Take a look around the lodge and the antique craft gallery. There's the Presbyterian Church. A little marker there. Bank of Mays Lick. We'll take a detour out the highway here and see if there's anything interesting on the other side of Mays Lick. Just about the extent of the town. We'll pause the camera and we'll turn around. We've turned around and we've looked at this is in Mays Lick proper, I guess. This is Highway 68 behind us. And this is the cemetery of Mays Lick. We see one Allison out there. His name was Archie Allison. Born in 1945 and he died in the 1960s. So that's a relatively recent. Now this is the Baptist cemetery, and we'll pan across here in a minute and we'll take a look at the Baptist church. And we don't believe this is where the main Allison family is buried, but as we can see here, there are several Allisons. I'm sure, that are buried in this in the cemetery. We found one without really looking. And there's the church. And the stones you see in front of the church are very, very old. We'll be taking this back down to Highway 324 and go to Shannon, Kentucky. That's where most of the Allisons supposedly were buried, in Shannon. And take a look and see if we see any Allisons out through the stones here. Here comes an older part of the cemetery. This would be left for future investigation, I think. The site of the First Baptist Church, organized November 28, 1789. Built in 1792, the first log church. The first brick church was 1810 to 1829. So this was all out here then. Okay, off to Shannon, Kentucky. On Highway 62, we turned right on Highway 62 from 324, which came out of Mays Lick from the east. And this is the church. This is the Shannon Cemetery, and I believe this is where most of the Allisons are buried that stayed here. This would be William Allison's family. Charles Kane Allison left this area and went to Indiana. And in Indiana, Charles Kane's family was John Samuel, and John Samuel, of course, is the father of Art Allison. So we'll hop out here and see if we can find the stones. There's the church. Just behind the church, a little bit further down from Nanny Allison, is John T. Allison and George A. Allison, his wife, which is interesting. That's George is normally a male's name. So here's one of the Allison monuments. Here is James B. Allison, 1885 to 1930. And here is Grover C. and Flora B. Allison. And we're going to look around and see if we can find William Allison's stone, but it looks like William Allison didn't have a headstone. Best we can tell right now, anyway. The Douglases married into the Allison family, and here were a couple stones that I still had taken. This is across the street. David Douglas and Cecil Douglas. And this is the Douglas monument right here, so evidently this is a family plot. The other graves are not marked. Road in Switzerland County, Indiana. We're on a dead-end road, gravel road off of 250, and we're pulling into the area that was John Francis Keith's farm, and the house is in very bad shape, disrepair, and the house is coming up on the right, and this road goes right through the barn yard.
there's even electricity here in the house at all. And I'll get out. We'll take a look around. Some of the farm equipment. And the original home of John Francis Keith. The tobacco field that was in the picture of the Ohio River Valley's family's book is located across this valley. Let's see if we can get a shot of it from this angle. The road winds around, goes to this area here, and it was this area here that by the telephone pole off in the distance is where the tobacco field was in the book. This is Keith Road. And the old abandoned farmhouse, which we don't think is going to be around much longer. Coming up on the right is the tobacco field, I think. Picture taken probably in 1880.
That's going to look like, it's almost going to look exactly like that other picture, only the tobacco's going to be shorter.
Crocus Grove Cemetery in Crocus Grove, Indiana, just down the road from Keith Road. And buried in this cemetery somewhere is Stephen Jones. And Ellen says she found a bunger. So,
No, that's not the fungus. Yeah, these big ones.
oh, okay. Bunger's married into the Keiths. The Ricketts, which are into the family.
We should have brought chalk. I wonder if it's in another page.
It's another Ricketts.
Yeah. No. No.
This is the James Ricketts.
These two are Pates.
These two here?
These two.
Rosella Pate.
Uh-huh. We're surrounded up here. We got Pates, Ricketts, and Keiths. You want to? Okay, you want to start here and then Millard and Evangeline. Okay, we can work on that. Woo! Hot.
Flora Keith, just a year old. Here's a couple of urns that have Keiths on them. And we found Stephen Jones's marker right about in the center of the cemetery. Toward the back of the cemetery.
L-V-I-R-A, Jones. Born August 29th, 1806. Died June, I'm going to say June 24th, 1893.
93, okay, and on this side we have Stephen.
Stephen Jones, born April the 8th, 1799. Died December 17th, 1887. So he was 88 years old.
Yeah, lived a pretty long life for this.
The stone stayed pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, it's really worn on this side. And she died in, what did I say, 93, and he died in 87. So she lived 5 years after him. 6 years after him.